Hey there, it's Chris with Acton Creative, and this is Weaving Stories, where weaving comes to life. Now, this is a new format for us. We had the pilot episode not that long ago and just had a lovely response. So we are going to try some more of this. The idea is that it'll be more conversational and entertaining versus a handwoven experience that has an educational focus. So in our episode today, I have a story about Uncle Bert's runner, plus we're going to hear a story from Christy. So without further ado, I say we dive right in. Well, let's start things off by talking about Uncle Bert's runner. So here is the visual. This is Uncle Bert's table runner. It's a rep weave runner. We'll talk about this in a second, but this is his runner here. And there are projects that you don't understand the significance of them until later. And this is one of those projects. But to understand the significance, we have to start with Uncle Bert. Uncle Bert retired from the state of Michigan and decided he was gonna live in his RV and travel around the country. And during that time, he found a real love for woodworking, wood turning, anything wood related in a workshop setting. And he really enjoyed taking classes at folk schools, kind of adult learning, casual setting, really interesting, unique kind of classes. So he would organize his year by thinking, okay, well, I'm going to spend a month or two here because I've got a couple classes I want to take. Then I'll travel out here for a while, and then I'll end up here at this folk school for another couple classes, and I'll visit family. And so it was fascinating to hear how he kind of wandered around and really fed his creative soul. So when he was ready to settle down and have a permanent address, he settled near the John C. Campbell Folk School in North Carolina. Now, if you haven't heard of the John C. Campbell Folk School, it is a beautiful, magical little place in the mountains of North Carolina near nothing else. It is stunning. It is really just a crafter's playground. It's amazing. And he, for the longest time, rented a house in Brasstown, and nothing is in Brasstown except the John C. Campbell Folk School. But he wanted to be close to the school. He loved the area. He loved the community. And that's where he started to put down roots. So he took full advantage of being that close to the folk school, and there's a local resident discount, all those good things. He took all kinds of classes there. As a matter of fact, if you've ever seen the brooms that are on my wall right over here, those are Uncle Bert's brooms. He did in a class. He made buckets and all kinds of crazy fun things. But he was always kind of, feeding into that sense of creativity. And he made it very clear that any of his nieces and nephews were welcome to pick a class, and he would foot the bill. He would take care of everything. He's like, just come on down. I would love for you to stay with me and take advantage of this amazing opportunity. So I did. They have a very strong weaving program at the Campbell Folk School, and I was all over that. So the first class I took there was an overshot class, and it was nearly a full week, but it was a blast. We all set up our looms and we learned all these varieties of overshot while we were there, it was so fun. And I'll have to find it somewhere, but I have a roll of samples from that class still to this day. It was amazing. Had a wonderful time. So during the day, I would go over to the folk school, and it was a whole day. And then in the evening, I would hang out with Uncle Bert, and we'd go explore the area or have dinner, whatever it was. And this place that Uncle Bert was renting was a cabin, pretty much. But he had decorated it out. He had color coordinated. He had blue silverware, and he had white plates with red trim, and it was very kind of all-American colors. He liked that. So as a thank you to Uncle Bert for this very generous gift and for spending a whole week with me, I decided I was going to make him a table runner. And it made sense then to kind of coordinate with his style, his fashion sense in this cabin where he was living. So as I was planning for this project, my goal was not to make it so much American flag, but a little bit more like Ralph Lauren. Do you know that kind of red, blue, white, khaki kind of sense? So it's a rep weave runner. So I had kind of this ongoing quick little stripe mixed in with these big blocks of color. And in true Chris Acton fashion, I couldn't have it the same all the way through. So I had it smaller here at one end, leading into bigger blocks, bigger repeats in the middle, and then back to smaller ones there at the end. Now, before I gave it to Uncle Bert, I of course washed and dried it, and I used a Shout color catcher, all the things. So when I handed it over to him, it wasn't pink. Let's just say something went awry in washing it once I handed it over to Uncle Bert. But somehow it adds to the story even more. So Uncle Bert absolutely loved it. He had that runner on his table till he died, and was always talking about, oh, my niece made this. I mean, it was just such a point of pride for him, and such a treat for me that he would get such a kick out of this thing that I made just as a thank you for him. So Uncle Bert's been gone for a couple years now, and as we were cleaning out his house, the runner is sitting there, and of course, for me, all I see is the pink on there. I'm like, oh, okay, there's pink everywhere. And my mom's like, don't care, it's staying with us. Like, yeah, it should stay with us. So we are now the proud owners of Uncle Bert's runner. And on occasion, pull it out and put it on the table, pink splotches and all. It was such a treat though, and so special to have that kind of connection to him, that he loved creative endeavors, and so do I. So we had a lot to bond over, and that's really no small thing. So next up, we're going to hear a fabulous story from Christy about how she got a loom. Are you ready? Let's hear about Christy and her loom story. She says, my first floor loom was an 8-shaft Cranbrook counter march. Now, total sidebar, friends. I have heard that word pronounced counter march, and counter mark. Someone put in the comments what is the correct way to say it. I don't know. I've heard all the ways, but I digress. Back to the story. Christy's first loom was an 8-shaft Cranbrook. She got it for a song. She said, we drove 4 hours to Deming, New Mexico, pulling our 4-horse trailer in order to bring it back. When we got to the shop, the loom was still fully assembled. She said the 4 of us stood there looking at the loom, looking at the trailer, looking at the loom, looking at the trailer for a half an hour, deciding if it would fit fully assembled. But the challenge was the loom was extremely heavy. She said her husband saw a guy sitting in a skid steer, which is like a little tractor, across the street. He was a city worker eating his lunch. So Christy marched over to him, asked, hey, could you give us a hand? $20 later, he had the loom loaded into our trailer, totally assembled. Only the worm wheel had to come off. I had to look that up because I didn't know what a worm wheel was, but it looks like a gear kind of thing. Anyways, she said we had a tractor at our house, so unloading was pretty easy. My husband was so happy he didn't have to take it apart when he saw how big and heavy it was. And Christy still works on this Cranbrook to this day. I have seen it. It is a beast, and it is gorgeous. Cranbrook is a really beautiful loom. But I love the problem solving that went into, okay, how do we get this beautiful loom all the way over to our house and in the space where it needs to land? That's some good problem solving. And you never know who might randomly have a skid steer to help you move your loom all the way into the trailer back to your house. I love those kind of stories. Now, my friend, part of weaving stories is contributions from you. So, do you have a story about how you got your loom? It doesn't have to be your first loom, it could be any loom, but I would love to hear it. And if you have something you'd like to share, I would love to then read it on an upcoming episode of Weaving Stories, because I know there are so many great stories about how people acquire a loom. That is not a normal thing, just to have a loom. So there's usually a good juicy story to go with. Be sure to send them to me, chris@actoncreative.net. And in the future, well, we'll read your story right here too. I hope you enjoyed this. Stay tuned. We'll have more weaving stories coming your way. Happy weaving.